Hey guys, what's up and welcome to another episode of the Goodcast Show. First and foremost, thank you to the Penguin Southeast Asia team for putting this interview together. We'll be sharing links to all the interviews we do with the authors from Penguin in the links to their books in the description, so get your copy when you can. But today, we are joined by a leading voice at the intersection of digital innovation, competition policy and gender inclusion. She is a competition and regulation specialist whose career has spanned Asia Pacific, the US and Latin America, advising on digital finance, trade, data, governance, e-commerce, and logistics. My. She brings a sharp gender lens to the digital economy, championing women's participation and safety in technology-driven sectors. She has served in the regulatory and in both the advisory roles as well across Singapore, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. And she's worked with both the public and private sector leaders to shape policies and govern our digital future. But today, enough about her past. We are here to talk about her book, The Female Digital Revolution. Let me just have that for a bit. My book was stolen. The Female Digital Revolution. There we go. I've read it. It's a fantastic book. It's published by Penguin Southeast Asia. And you know what? If you guys want to know what's happening with women in the digital tech space and the things that we need to do to help improve their participation and protect them, there's the book for you. Links will be shared in the description, so make sure you get your copy. Now, so please welcome the author, Nimisha Tailor. Nimisha, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Vinod. Thanks for inviting me.
No worries, man. Firstly, I want to say thank you and congrats on a fantastic book.
Thank you.
And so I was just wondering, this is a question oftentimes I think people may ask, especially on the males side of the gender debate, would be that why do we need to cater so much to the female entrepreneurs in the tech space or women in tech space? Why can't they compete on their own?
Right, dive into it. So
yeah, no background on you. Enough. Let's go into it.
No, as first. So I'm going to first say that you use the word, why do we need females in tech? So I'm going to start with that if I can.
Oops.
Because
I meant it in the most respectful way.
No. It's a very good question.
Yeah.
The reason why I want to just sort of start that, because I want to talk about not women just in tech, but women in the digital economy. And I just want to sort of say that because it's quite important, because I view when we start talking about technology, I view it as the digital economy, because every industry right now is being digitalized in some shape or form.
Yeah.
And so quite often what we're seeing is not just tech as an industry, where it could be related to digital infrastructure or digital sort of services. I also want to recognize that there are industries or other aspects of our economy that are being digitalized. So traditional services, still providing core services like finance, health, education, where they're being digitally transformed in some shape or form. And so when you look at it as a digital economy, that affects all of us, right? It affects all the different businesses, different industries, and everyone who's part of that. And that includes both men and women. And so my focus is getting women in every aspect of our digital economy and having that representation in everywhere, because digital economy is everywhere.
Okay. So, but if it does involve everyone, shouldn't we make it that women have to compete the same way men compete in this space? We should let the free market reign.
So I've had a career in competition policy and promoting competition. I'm focusing on showcasing what are the opportunities.
Okay.
And I focused in the book about what are the opportunities in particular for women, because I think some women are perhaps not quite sure what is happening to this digital economy, what industries are being digitalized, how is it actually being used?
Okay.
So it's actually for some girls or for women that may not be aware, they may be at early stage of the career trying to figure out their career paths, women maybe later on in life looking to maybe change careers and do something differently. And they want to understand, what is actually happening there? How do I fit in? And so that's from that perspective. And it's looking at what those opportunities, and it would look different for everyone else. It could be a very technical type of career that they might want to do. For example, if they were very interested in engineering, It could be that you're a finance person, you love playing around with numbers, but we're talking about how our banking services, our payment services are being digitalized. There could be some sort of role in there. Or you might be interested in the arts. And so, there's a story about a digital artist in the book as well, to say, well, how can you actually then bring a lot of this digital art to life, like digital exhibitions and different ways. So it's about showing where are the opportunities that you may not realize. So the inspiration is quite important. And to not sort of fear that this is a very technical area and to sort of shy away from it.
Okay. Now, you call for conscious policy making with the gender lens. That's what you call for. Why do you call for this?
So I'm going to go back into my career just to share how I got to that kind of thinking. So I've spent my career working, as you said, in government, in the UK, in New Zealand, Australia, and Singapore as well. And I've worked for competition regulators. So the focus has been on promoting competition in different markets and industries. And so I've been busy involved in doing lots of investigations of looking at are companies behaving anti-competitively, or what are the barriers to entry in a particular market. So probably you're thinking, what on earth has this got to do with inclusivity?
The thought did cross my mind.
Absolutely fair enough. But this is how, when I think about, when I'm looking at making markets competitive, it's about creating a level playing field.
Okay.
You have some companies that might be monopolies, and you're looking about how we can remove those barriers to make it easy for new entrants to come in. And so for me, when I think of inclusivity, and obviously in my book I just talk about gender, there are other aspects of inclusivity too. It's about creating those spaces that allows people to come in and enter. They have the choice to come in. It's just like in markets, we have a new business that comes in with a new product, a new service, new innovation, or it could be exactly the same, but they can do it better or cheaper. It's that same thinking, that creating a level playing field in our markets, that is also in my mind of how we can create spaces in our economy
but
for individuals to come in.
But is creating a level playing field, should it be gender focused? I mean, the problems that we see why there isn't a level playing field is more associated with class problems as opposed to, things like nepotism and all that, as opposed to gender, right? I mean, what are the is that really such a big problem that we need to specifically focus on gender? And if there are such barriers, could you at least share some example of barriers that limit women coming into this space?
So there is a real need to get more women represented in every aspect of our digital economy.
Why?
2 reasons. Actually, probably 3. The first is from an individual perspective. It's about female empowerment, economic empowerment. So one of the things, if you look at some of the research, is that when you look at, particularly for one of the that I talk about in the book, is from the US, is that more women are getting educated, more women are working, and they're wanting to move, the aspirations. And so one of the things I want to also achieve with the book, and when I talk is helping to make that inspiration, and as women, the economic empowerment to pursue fulfilling careers, if that's what you want, or fulfill your passion or things that you care about, real world problems that you care about. And also the economic empowerment is financial independence as well. At the same time, so that's at an individual level. Then when we talk about economies, we have businesses. That's an important aspect of the economy as well. And I also think it makes economic and business sense, because a lot of businesses are missing out. Women make up 50% of the global population. And quite often they intentionally or unintentionally, forget that there is this customer segment that is not really being catered for. So there's a business opportunity to actually create that. And then the other aspect is in terms of from an economy or from a government level is that, if you've got people that are jobs, they're working, you've got the female empowerment, you've got businesses that are benefiting, they all have a multiplier effect.
Of course.
For an economy. And I focus on that in terms of raising that growth for the economy that raises standards of living for everyone.
I'm more curious in terms of how would your policies take shape. For instance, I've interviewed an NGO called Empower here in Malaysia, and they are currently pushing for 30% of electoral candidates, political candidates fielded in any general election or any election in Malaysia must be women, right? So my concern with this is that, are you asking the same thing? Are you saying that we must have a quota or a certain percentage? I mean, how would your policies look like?
Good question. So perhaps the other thing I will answer that question, but I think the point to make is that with the book, I don't actually use the word barriers. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, you don't use the word barriers.
I don't use the word barriers because, and I talk about missed opportunities, and this is about reframing. So quite often, if you look at a lot of research that's done, yes, and I also get these questions: what are the barriers? Why aren't women in tech?
Yeah.
So I'm reframing that. I'm first of all saying it's about women in the digital economy, not just tech, to recognize that there are these different career paths. And it's a mindset shift in terms of saying, where are the opportunities for women? Because I feel as if quite often with the world, the way it's moving right now, a lot is to do with mindset. A lot is to do with how we view this. So that's where I'm approaching this from, to actually ask where are the opportunities and where do women and girls fit in. They can ask this themselves, and business to start thinking about that. Your question about quotas is one that gets asked a lot. Should we have quotas, or should we basically...
You're making me feel so not special.
Sorry.
Just a normal
but it's
guy.
No, I guess it's a question that has been raised quite often. And it comes up in boards as well.
Because in Malaysia, from Malaysian perspective, the quota system is something that's in our bones, because we approach this from a time we were kids in our education, work, this is all there. But I just want to know, like, how would your policies that you are proposing, how would they look like?
So I'm talking about... I'm going to come back to the question on the quotas, to be fair, so that you can get my answer to the question. I think there's no right or wrong answer, sounding like the typical economist, but I think there are some situations where quotas have worked, and quotas as general I'm not really a fan of, to be quite honest, because sometimes, but they can be useful if you're starting from ground zero. That where you maybe have absolutely no women, I'm saying, for example, on a board, for example, because that's where it also comes up as well, and also the question about in parliaments in some countries as well. It may be that having that quota is the easy step to get more women into that. But then over time, it may be that the quota is no longer needed, and that we start actually recruiting based on merit. So,
but the problem is that shift sometimes is very hard for it to happen, for people to realize, okay, we are fine now, let's go back to merit. It usually stays.
So that's where, in terms of designing policies, it's very important to have that long-term view rather than looking for the quick wins, quite right you say. And so it's thinking about what are the outcomes that you are looking to achieve and over what time, so short-term, medium-term, and long-term as well. Because you're right, in the sense that people quite often say, oh, we've got this quota, and I'm just talking about things that I've just sort of heard, we struggle to fill it, and sometimes even having the quota doesn't really create the result that you want. Whereas what I'm actually sort of saying in the book is that first it's an issue for everyone. So it's not that, oh, it's just one person's problem. And so I talk about here's what women can do to inspire them to think about their skills, as the chapter on the skills.
Yeah.
And then I also talk about what businesses can do what government can do, and what investors can do, and what men can do too as well.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that as well later on. Yeah.
So there are different roles that everyone plays, and I deliberately showcase it from that because these are different roles. These are the economic agents that we have in our economy. And
but speaking of which, you do suggest that to design technology by women for women, right? You do say that. So when you say things like this, aren't you afraid that, number one, it would lead to the death of meritocracy, which I'm full on for, and number two is it sort of could create a sense of entitlement among women that no, we want this because we deserve it, not it's ours, not because we deserve it, or aren't you concerned about that?
To be honest, I'd never thought of it like that. I think it was about the inspiration of getting the women involved. And rather than sort of thinking that, hey, this esports is not for me, or fintech's not for me, or health tech's not for me, or I don't know how to use this kind of piece of technology or whatever. It was for me probably started thinking, instead of actually raising your sort of concerns and sort of getting this fear, to maybe actually be proactive and be part of it. And so if something doesn't work for you, go out and design it if that's where your passion are. And in fact, some of the stories are in the book. They all come from the women that are innovating something. They all come because they've experienced something that didn't work for them. For example, there's a lady who had an accident while she was traveling. She was struggling to get insurance. And now she's created a platform that's called Air Doctor that makes it easy to find all the different GPs and specialists on a platform that you can actually have access to, which sounds like, may sound very simple, but it's when that you have those emergencies. Yeah. So it's that inspiration to say, hey, instead of sort of shying away from it, if there is something that you can do, you have an idea, and nurture the idea. It might be that, this lady doesn't have a tech background. She probably hasn't, developed an app before. Just like myself, this is my first book. I've never wrote a book before. But I think it's that mindset of saying, hey, I have an idea. Let me see if I can nurture this seed and make it grow. And who do I need to talk to help me make this happen? So not just I benefit, but others can benet from my idea too.
For everyone, right? Now, of course, in this type of discussion, I think you touched on it a bit. In this book, you talk about how you discuss tech being weaponized. Weaponized is the word used against women. Powerful word, by the way. Weaponized, right? What are some of the examples of this happening?
In what context?
No, are there any examples that tech is being weaponized against women, or that is why we need policies to protect women? We need some.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So whilst I'm talking about having more women in the digital economy, there is that side of making sure that you participate in the digital economy in a very safe and secure manner. And that's where you come to the supposedly not so sexy part of you start talking about regulations and, regulating big tech or regulating other, healthcare service, telemedicine or payment sort of services. And those things are really important. And especially within the context of online safety. So that's one area that is very topical right now in every world, in the UK and I'm sure here in Malaysia here and definitely in Singapore. And this is because, whilst we want to get more women in the digital economy, they are an example of one of the vulnerable groups that are being affected by cyberbullying. With the rise of AI, it's deep fakes. There have been numerous examples of, photos, naked photos or, terrible photos women that have been circulated, but they're AI fakes that have been created. And it's not just women, it is children that are being also exposed to harmful content online as well. And also appreciate some men that are being affected too. But looking at them as a vulnerable sort of group, there is this sort of need to make sure that you're safe online, because that has not just a reputational impact. There's scams that are out there in terms of being love scams. I think there's been a real sort of rise in that as well.
Yeah. There's a very interesting show on Netflix as well.
Yeah. So there are financial implications to this as well, and psychological too as well. You know, it could be that, you know, someone writes a comment online. They don't know the person, they don't see the person, so, you know, very comfortable. But some negative content can have quite a lot of psychological impact. And so this is a very tough area, because whilst there are benefits from this, there is this terrible dark side. And so how do you get this balance of, you know, keeping everyone sort of safe? And so online safety regulation is something that governments are looking at. It was first introduced in Australia. It's been around for a long time.
Here too, we are slowly,
And precisely because, unfortunately, something bad happened.
Yeah.
You know, there was a woman who was quite well-known celebrity. She was actually doing a show in relation to cyberbullying. But then she was then also cyberbullying. Some comments were made against sort of her. And it led to an unfortunate incident where she took her own life. And that's terrible. I mean, that becomes a real wake-up call where, you know, you start having to think about, okay, we need to have the regulatory framework where you have a dedicated agency looking at this. You know, there's enforcement actions, so that fear that, you know, if you are cyberbullying, if you do harmful, if you share deep fakes, you know, that there are penalties involved, and that those penalties are serious enough for you to, you know, comply. So that's what I think there's a role of government. But I also think there is this real importance of us as individuals educating ourselves as well. And there's also women making sure that if this is the first time you're doing something or using social media or how you're using this, you know, to be also mindful yourself what steps you can take, you know, over consumption. I myself, you know, sometimes if I know that I'm spending too much time on my phone, you know, I go lock it in a cupboard for a while. So that
stay away from me.
Yeah, because, you know, you reckon, you know, but it's having that sort of realizing what I need to do to manage my relationship with my device. I need that. And how I consume the internet in a healthy way.
You know, I mean, of course, this topic of women in the tech space or in the digital economy, as you say, I was reading up. I think it was a report or it was a study that was done recently as well, and it said that one of the traits that women have brought into the tech space or the digital economy, as you mentioned, is this spirit of collaboration. Right, this is something that I guess men don't really like to do much of. You know, so. Are there any, I mean, what are the benefits that women or the differences or the changes that women have introduced into the digital economy by their participation in terms of perhaps the way they run their business, the way they conduct themselves?
Great question. Firstly, in the book, I talk about superpowers. So I talk about these natural sort of characteristics that women have as superpowers. And
multitasking, I think.
Absolutely. And that comes from a question that actually an interviewer asked me when I applied for a job. This is many years ago. The recruiter asked me, "What's your superpower?" And I'd never heard that before. And I'd, you know, these images of Superman, you know, Batman in my mind. And so that actually made me reflect that question of, you know, what is my superpower? And the things that, you know, I think are just natural, that, hey, everyone does all these things. You know, you suddenly realize, well, that's not the case. And I'm so glad you asked me about collaboration, because that is definitely one of them. And so one of the things that, you know, I see that in many shape or forms. So in government when I worked. Quite often I was not just running investigations, we would have policy programs. And so it was also about how do you work with different stakeholders? How do you do outreach? And so that's also where you need collaboration. So I'm a big fan of public and private sector collaboration as well, especially since I've left government, but it's still having that link. And so I hope that I can fill a lot of that role and bridging some of that gap, because quite often they come from different perspectives. But that collaboration is really important. The other thing I'd say is from the book, I've been traveling a lot. I've been traveling UK, where I'm from. This is my third visit to Malaysia, around Thailand and Hong Kong. And, a lot of the talks that I've been doing is with schools, universities, and non-profits. And so one of the things that's amazing is that you've seen women who have, in addition to all various different hats that they may have, that are championing a lot of non-profit organizations. I think Empower Her, there's Women in Tech that's here, there's She Loves Data, there's She Shapes AI, there's loads of these non-profits that are run by women, and they are creating this community, and they are working with companies to help to create programs, whether it's providing training, mentorship, and it's amazing what they're doing. And this is all through collaborations. They're going out there, they're creating the community, they're looking for who do we partner with. So, and I feel as if that also comes back to one of the things that I've been seeing, and also with the book, that collaboration is taking place very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And it's very vibrant, it's very exciting, it's very ground up. And I think what I find really valuable is not just on a personal level, because you meet like-minded women who are passionate, or you can help each other up on different things that they might be doing, which could be like writing a new book or starting up a new business, is that I think they're also filling a gap. So quite often, as every country has the challenges of government funding, it may be limited, it may only focus on one aspect. Whereas I've been really impressed with how these non-profits are filling this gap, ground up, dealing with issues that are on the ground. And especially right now where, I was just reading more statistics about unemployment, where with this AI wave, people are worried about jobs.
Yeah, but how do you think that AI introduction and how we are celebrating it, which I'm quite worried about even, how will that impact women in the tech space?
This is also a question and there's a number of studies that are taking place as well, as to kind of understand, are women going to be more negatively impacted? I'm going to come back and still bring it back to, I think there are not just women that could be potentially negatively impacted. I think men as well, and also different generations that are going to be impacted.
I
think
everyone.
One right now is that a lot of the young students who are just maybe coming out from university are being worried about looking for their jobs. And then I think there's people that are in the late 50s or 60s, they're the ones that are also being affected. And I think the way I look at this, and this is taking from when we look at previous industrial revolutions where we have these periods of change, this is this big period of economic change, not just technologically, every aspects of our economy, lots of other issues. I mean, how many wars we've got going on right now is crazy. So I think we're in this period of change. And I think this comes to saying that there are some people, unfortunately, that are going to be impacted, and that there's those in the immediate term. So coming back to what the book is about, to showcase with this world of change, where are the opportunities for women? And it might be that, and that's the stories where women have been in those traditional, a lot of women, for example, in corporate careers, if they've been made redundant, they are then also then looking, how do I use technology? I still want to work. I still want my economic being empowered. How can I look at that next phase of life? And so they are reinventing themselves. They're doing a lot of startups, a lot of new businesses, and, learning themselves as they go along. So if you look at where those opportunities are, and I think that's where it's about the training that is important. So making sure that we're just digitally literate, AI literate, and having those opportunities available. Because unfortunately, I think if you're not using AI, you are going to lose out on those opportunities. Whereas if actually, the ones that will find those opportunities, the ones that have access to obviously the education, but also the mindset to say, okay, how can I now think of in a new world?
Yeah, definitely. And I think AI is a powerful way to complement you as well, complement your work and all that. But you also touch on the role of investors and in this space and how they can promote more participation from women. What should they do?
So the statistic that always gets put out is that not enough investors are actually investing in women. And I see so many women going out there doing startups right now, especially from these non-profits that are supporting these these ideas. And like I said, it's nurturing that sort of seed. And so I think for investors, quite often, one of the stories that I showcase is from the Philippines, where they had an investors community, and then they tried to get more women involved. And so they basically started to think of day in the life of a woman, to be quite honest. If you're having regular open up the network for a start. That would be my first sort of thing. Quite often, I think investors, one of the research says, is that quite often you might be looking within your own network because it's quite safe, or you have your own trusted network. So open up your network, and then open to yourself going and finding out about these female entrepreneurs, but also making it inviting for female entrepreneurs to come to you. So one example, as simple it is, and I love simple solutions, is that, where they were hosting their regular members meetings, is it in a place that is inviting for women, or, so have it at a time and at a place that is open. I think it was, if it's somewhere that you might just find that's more, I have images of a stereotype image of a basement and a dark, smoky room, but that's not the case. But I'm just using that as an example. I'm just using that as an example that if you create an open space that looks inviting, and the time of day that you would have it, because obviously, some women do have other commitments, family commitments, having it really late in the evenings may not be working really well, but something like a breakfast meeting might be really good. Simple things like that can help with that engagement.
Considering that your work and your experience, branches countries and all that, right? It goes across countries and all. Which country, or maybe perhaps even organization, is getting it right in terms of ensuring the continuous inclusion of women into the digital economy, and what should we replicate from them?
If I had a clean sheet of paper, I would take little bits from different countries and put them together.
Okay, Frankenstein it.
Yeah. And I'd call it my beautiful mosaic.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that, because I think it's hard to compare countries. Everyone likes to do see what other countries are doing, and we get into these comparison sorts of modes. But you've got to recognize every country is different. Here in ASEAN, for example, we have 10 countries. Every economy is very different as well. Different. And there's cultural differences as well.
Yes.
And different stages of economic development as well, and digital development as well. So, and different accessibility. So you've got to recognize that. But one of the things that I think that I've been quite impressed with, especially some developing countries, say from the Pacific Islands and also some from Africa, for example, where I've been doing digital payments, and even in some parts of ASEAN, is that where you've got government having these long-term plans, those national, I talk about it in the frame of payments, for example, central banks that have got a national financial inclusivity plans, for example. So that's a great way of having a long-term vision. And it's not just about, say, a central bank thinking, okay, I just need to update my payment infrastructure, and that's a very technical thing so that we can have real-time payment systems so you can make peer-to-peer payments or QR code payments.
Yeah.
That sounds very infrastructure, digital, techie related. But one of the things that's great is that there's a policy in place over the long term to think about, okay, if I put this infrastructure in place, how do I make sure that my citizens use it? Not just the few citizens that are digitally savvy,
Everyone.
but every single citizens. And so those plans about how I engage those different parts of the economy. I talk about obviously the women, the elderly is something that's so topical as well. So how do I get different stakeholders, companies, non-profits? How do I do the training? Who's providing that training is just as important.
And I think it's interesting you say that, because that space of older women, older people are sort of being forgotten when there's a huge space there, that is not exploited. Not exploited, not accessed.
Absolutely. It's funny, my mother-in-law, we didn't actually have Wi-Fi in the home for quite a while, didn't want to use the digital devices. But now it's been so cute over the years. I've watched my nephew actually teach my mother-in-law how to use the smartphone, how to set things up, how to set up the Zoom.
And they learn quick too.
It is, but it's a beautiful bonding moment, right?
Yeah.
It's so beautiful watching her, what she deep down really cares about is spending time with her grandchildren, but she's learning from someone she trusts in that safe sort of manner. And, during the pandemic, we were traveling, so we couldn't travel to New Zealand, but she was set up on Zoom.
Yeah.
And we can have those kind of conversations.
I remember recently I had a conversation with my grandmother, and she's just, so good with all this, right? I'm not really well versed with, she knows the features and all that. So I told her, I said, every morning you wake up, you send good morning messages to, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people, right? I say, why don't you, you should be like, in your pastime, you should do like affiliate marketing, right? Because, you have the time, you have the community, right? 2 key elements, you need to be a good affiliate marketer, and you can make some money. And she was like, oh, what do you mean? How do you do it and all that? So, like you said, I completely agree that this space of people have so much potential that's not really been tapped.
And there are great stories of that. I think there's the women, as you say, they've tried something out, running their own podcasts, you know what I mean?
Stuff like that. Yeah.
And these are really valuable because, one, I come back to that sort of that phrase again, economic empowerment or empowering, because these are women who have very wise, lots of experience, lots to learn. It's their way of giving back.
Yeah.
We can also sort of learn from that. And the other thing that I have to also highlight is that why it's also important is that a lot of countries right now, we have aging population.
Yeah, we are going to be an aging population soon. Yeah.
And the fantastic thing is we are living longer. So there is that question of, what are you going to do at different stages of your life?
Yeah.
And so this is a great opportunity where you start being much more creative. And one story I will also share, I did a talk earlier this year at the National Library. And, it was all members of the public. And there was a gentleman there that said that he's retired, but he learned how to use digital devices, and so he spends his weeks teaching other old people. So he became like an ambassador. So, I mean, there's a gentleman there that also applies to women as well, where, you know, they themselves can be ambassadors and give back to their communities. So that comes back to the point of it also matters who's doing the teaching.
Exactly.
Because we learn better from someone that we're comfortable with, we resonate with. And, you know, if you know, some people might thrive in a classroom, others might be thinking, oh, my God.
why,
Trauma might kick in.
Yeah. But again, I mean, as I think I started this interview with you talking about men and perspective, right? But I want to know, what do you recommend men in this topic? What can we do differently so that, or we should do to make more room for women in the digital economy?
Thank you for that question.
We should get out of it. Leave, man.
You have a very important role, and that's why I made sure that was a very important part of the book as well, because you know, there are things that are very valuable that men do. And I'm going to come back from that approach of, again, thinking is men in our homes, the roles they play, men that are in businesses, men that are in government, and men as investors. So I talk about men in the house, you know, I think that comes back down to being supportive around the home. You know, I think a lot of women carry the burden of running the households, and so having that more support at home can maybe free up their time to actually pursue their passions and actually invest in themselves to say, okay, hey, what is the opportunity? I don't know, but sometimes it could be, I just don't have the time to look for this. So having that support at home is very, very crucial in every kind of way, however your family might look like. It could be with juggling different sort of things. But also being a bit of the cheerleader as well, I think is quite important. So being passionate about, so my husband had the pleasure of reading my very first drafts of my book.
Yay. If my wife did that, I'm like, oh God.
She'd be bored to death.
Could you ask ChatGPT or something? Don't ask me. No, but
that was very important to me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Having that support of this is something that I'm very passionate about, and you being part of that process for me.
But that takes this into another level as well, because are there social norms? And because what you're talking about also are social norms and social expectations, cultural expectations of a woman. So are they also limiting factors for their participation in the tech space?
Yes, there is. I think, and that comes back to the cultural differences as well, you know, and I think in some areas, in some households, you know, I've been sort of very lucky in the sense that, you know, I've traveled and lived in different countries, so I've adapted in some shape or forms. But yes, those social norms do create those sorts of challenges, and they're not going to change overnight, unfortunately, as well. So I think is that awareness. I think it's for men to be much more aware, you know, in terms of, and support what their women, the women in their lives sort of need. And I think there is also that change in the role of men, which I also talk about in the book, because when we talk about sort of young girls, I see a lot of fathers spending more time in nurturing them with their passions and wanting to spend more time with them. And actually putting a lot of more work-life balance in place for themselves so that they do spend more time actually at home. So I think some of those sorts of shifts I see that are happening that, you know, will hopefully sort of carry through as well.
You talk a lot about missed opportunities. You use the word opportunities a lot, right? So in your opinion, where do you think is the next sort of greatest untapped opportunities for women in the coming years in the digital economy?
I would say, if I'm going to go from an industry perspective, and where I'm seeing the growth that I think will definitely continue, I would say is health, education, and financial services.
Okay.
The reason why I'm going to look at this as those industry, because those three industries are essential industries in some shape or form.
Very, yeah.
And they became so important during the pandemic when we had And so it was so important to transform these industries. One, obviously, healthcare. You know, people are dying, people are affected by this disease, this pandemic. So healthcare is, you know, and then we started to have telemedicine, telehealth, looking at how we access healthcare, the providers of healthcare, you know, the whole ecosystem for healthcare is important. And then that also links to the fact that we have an aging population, women wanting to manage their health at different stages of their life in a different way. There's a greater demand for that. So healthcare definitely. I think there's a lot of missing data that is there as well in terms of how we can get better healthcare services for women. The other area is education. Again, that was affected by the pandemic where, you know, how do we keep schools, how do we keep teachers providing these services, everything moved online. And the great thing is that women are learning more, girls are studying for longer. There's statistics that women during the pandemic used some of their free time to take up extra courses to learn. And a lot of these nonprofits are providing training. I see a lot of women investing in themselves and looking for opportunities to study. And I think how we look, that's a very growing sector of thinking about learning in a very different way, learning on the go, learning for different generations of women. We talked about older women, but, you know, mid-career women that are, you know, very ambitious, women that may be learning to be an entrepreneur. It might be formal education. It might be wanting to do a university degree or a diploma or something that gets some sort of certification. Or it could be practical learning. It could be something that's bite-sized. I'm busy, I have lots to sort of do, but I still want to learn. I can learn. So I think there's lots of scope to think creatively in terms of what is being taught, how we teach that, and the speed, because things are changing very quickly. So you need to be quick at putting content out there, learning content out there.
So to better their own participation in this economy, what are the skills that they should focus on if for women who are new entrants?
So in my book, I talk about them as the technical skills that you might want to look at, and I give lots of examples. For example, it might be you want to be a software developer and you want to learn coding, you want to learn to code. It might be from a technical perspective, you're interested in cloud computing, and a lot of the cloud companies actually run cloud computing courses where you can actually get certified, and that's a great example of learning for certification, but there's a route to a job, a tangible role. And so it might be that, that's not really sort of me. And this also reflects on my journey when I was sort of thinking, where do I fit in? You know, I studied economics. Is economics relevant today?
Yes, I love economics.
Fantastic, exactly.
Economics is the only living science out there. You can see it happening around you if you really notice.
Absolutely. I feel as if that's more relevant today than it was. And so I've had this opportunity to basically learn about different technologies, but, you know, I'm not an engineer, you know, I don't know how to code, but I like learning. And so I think one of the things is coming back to what I talked about, the superpowers, you know, what is it that is your superpower, and use it. So then that's where the soft skills becomes important. So, you know, whether it's someone that you have this great critical thinking skills, whether you have good problem solving skills, you talked about the collaboration. The teams that we have right now in our companies that are solving these big digital transformation projects, whether it's in a bank, a hospital, a hotel, or whether in big tech, these teams have different people You may have the lawyer in the room, you may have the accountant in the room, maybe the policy person, it may be the engineer. That's where you need strong leadership.
Yeah.
These are where these people skills become important, not the technical, because you might have you'll already have the technical experts. Those leaderships, the collaborative skills, I think is the superpower, because I think we're not going to see any change if you don't actually bring these different stakeholders together.
No, but it's interesting you say that, because in your book you do highlight stories of people, examples of entrepreneurs, right? So I was reading it and I was just thinking to myself, I was like, what, in your research and in your experience, what are the key differences between the leadership styles of female entrepreneurs, CEOs or founders versus men? What's the key difference?
I think collaboration, I think that, and I'm talking very sort of generally, I think the empathy, collaboration.
Women are less empathetic. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think you see a lot of female leaders with having a lot of empathy and also having collaboration and inclusivity top at mind. And I say this from my own experience as well, is that, throughout my career, I've been running lots of teams and, you and being able to, skills that you need as a leader, listening, who's doing the talking, who's not doing the talking. How do you bring in the ones that perhaps have great idea? How do you actually bring them into the conversation? So for me, I've always been mindful of making sure that those views are heard. Not that I might be in a decision-making role, so it's important for me to hear all those views, but also making sure that those voices are heard amongst the team as well. So I think it's just leadership. I think it's having those strong leadership skills that are important right now. And I'm also going to sort of hesitate a little bit to say, yes, there are some characteristics that I think that women leaders have that you don't necessarily see in male leaders. The empathy, the listening, the inclusivity, and but I also think that you also have women that have maybe lead in the same way that males might lead as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I wanted to recognize there is that.
No, but let's get back to that part. I want to put you to the front here. Come on.
But I think the gap is that whether you're a male or female, you need strong leadership skills right now. And that leadership is not getting so focused on whether I'm the technical expert. That leadership is to bring out the innovation, bring out the ideas, and reminding people as you go along on that journey and having that plan. I talk about in the book about digital leadership, and there's that sort of say that, almost this digital leadership needs to be very visionary, needs to be very inspiring now, because as you say, a lot can be done through ChatGPT. So if you're a leader, people are looking for you to kind of give me more than what I can just read on ChatGPT, inspire me. And I think that the reason why I share that in the book and important for women, because I think some women forget that they actually have these strong leadership skills. And I'm talking here, for example, women that may be been out of the workforce, they've been raising children or looking after elderly parents. They're coming back, they're a bit nervous to say, where do I find my place? What kind of role? I'm thinking, God, may not use ChatGPT or understanding AI, the world looks different. How do I fit in? But if you're running a household and you've got 3 kids and you've got elderly parents that you're managing, you're collaborating and running your house, right?
Yeah. I think
you
that's
are
true.
making, you're working with your family. You quite often, everyone is coming to you with their problems. To can't find this, can't find that. You are planning so much in terms of the household purchases. In fact, women make 80% of household decisions, household purchases as well.
That's true. I completely. I'm a married man. I agree with you, 1,000%.
Those, and they sort of forget those things when we start to look at it in the workplace. And so quite often my advice has always been to someone that's looking for these roles, that showcase these skills are needed in the workplace. But I also think companies need to be open to looking at these skills. And quite often what you're seeing now, this trend of skills-based hiring. So you're hiring based on skills.
That's true. And I think that also affects the person's psyche as well. And I think that's why women are maybe apprehensive on joining, because like as you said, when they are the leaders of their household, they're juggling 10 different things at the same time. That's exactly the skill you need to run a company. You need to be, especially at the start, when you're a startup, when you're low manpower, you need to be, look at everything. And I think they doubt themselves. They don't, because they feel that to get into entrepreneurship, whether it's digital economy or not, you need to have some special skills. But no, it's actually, those are the management skills that you need, right? That's key.
Hit the nail on it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and they don't appreciate that.
And I think I am showing this in the book based on my personal experience as well, being able to work in 3 different continents, in different governments, where being adapting to how you live and work. People sort of say, what degree do I need to do, or what do I need to read up on?
I never agreed
and
with that.
It's not the knowledge. It's me, my mindset, being open to learning and adapting.
Yeah, and also if you get into entrepreneurship, for example, if it's entrepreneurship, you don't need to take a degree in entrepreneurship. If you wanted to, which is good for you, you need to learn maybe certain areas, but not the whole thing. And they doubt themselves. I think women doubt themselves too much. I think when it comes to this, that's the problem. Yeah.
And I think entrepreneurship can look different. So that's the other thing I'd highlight. For women, it could also be, yes, it could be starting your own business. And so you have a great idea, but, you need to also learn, there's no HR, there's no finance person.
It's all you.
It's all you.
It's all you.
So, it's recognizing that I need to learn how to do this, or I need to find someone else that can do it for me.
Yeah.
But I also think that we're also seeing entrepreneurial roles within businesses. So quite often you have, for example, I'm thinking a lot of some of the big tech, but also some of the banks. They may have a think tank. They may have like an innovation lab. That some of these roles actually requires an entrepreneurial mindset.
Yeah.
So within the company, because what they want to do is try and foster some creativity, but without affecting core parts of their business. And so they may have this separate team that role brings new ideas and new collaborations that could be with other businesses or other industries as well. And I think the same also applies within government as well. Yeah. We are also, this is me putting my hat on in terms of former colleagues, with the world changing, we've talked about online safety. I've talked a little bit about how digital payments are coming through. We're talking about social media. We're talking about AI. There's this big question of how do I shape these policies that make these technologies safe? How do I shape these policies for people? That also needs a bit of an entrepreneurial, because I think one of the questions you've been asking me a lot, and quite rightly so, is what are the policies? What are the policies? And sometimes it's thinking about a policy in a completely different way. And that's why I said that hypothetical of if we had a white piece of paper, I would take different bits from everywhere and create this mosaic, because there are different ideas from everywhere. There's no one magic silver bullet.
Now, I mean, in while you do highlight the need for women in the tech space and all that in the economy, the stats show that women participation in entrepreneurship is growing. It's growing, right? But what do you think is the future? How will the future, say in the next 10 years, how will the future look like, in your opinion, when it comes to women in the digital economy and the contributions that they could make to either better it?
So responding back to your first part, you're absolutely right. There's a lot of, and here in Malaysia too as well, I've had to meet a lot of the women, these are young women up on stages, pitching their ideas and doing this. It's amazing to see. So I think for them, the challenge is also when they have these good ideas, as with every kind of startup scale. You get to a sort of point where, how do I scale this out to grow my business, whether it's in different aspects? And that's where that support becomes really important as well. And so for them to also know, where do I go to that support, whether it's to the investor, what government subsidies or plans can I tap into, or if I want to do some sort of partnership or collaborations with businesses. And also having these participants open to that as well. And as you quite rightly say, this is just one example of how women in startups as entrepreneurs are making significant economic contributions. I'd also add, we talked about maybe the elderly ladies that are doing their podcasts, or teaching. There is still an economic contribution that's being made there. They're still contributing in terms of, if they're training other people to maybe use digital devices, and they can use these digital devices to access healthcare, access better financial services, access online services, or basically just do my shopping online. There are transactions that are being made. There's still that economic contribution. So I would say that there is this real need to recognize that economic contribution in different ways, whether it's as an entrepreneur, whether it's some of the nonprofits that are training and providing mentoring services, whether it's the women who work in government that are designing these online safety laws or contributing to the discussions about how we regulate AI, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Those different roles, they all have a value. And the key importance is measuring that.
Yeah.
Now, measuring the digital economy is a task that is huge or being difficult already. And there are a lot of international organizations that have been making attempts to do that. But I think as we progress that, I think it's important to start also going narrow and trying to make some attempts at measuring the economic contribution as a way of inspiring others to realize its value. So some people want something tangible. But I think at the same time, my other call to action in the book is to say that women, you need to also participate, because if you don't show up, you're not going to get counted in those numbers.
That's true.
So coming back to your point in terms of the women that doubt for whatever reasons, and that might be holding them back, if they don't show up, there's no data being collected about you. If there's no data being collected about you, then how are we going to deal with better healthcare services, help you plan for retirement, for example? How do we deal with women that are dealing with perimenopause, menopausal issues, or women in early stages of their life that are looking to have children, or various sorts of diseases and women's health? If there's no data on there, then how can we expect any sort of improvement?
So only through their participation will women be represented and heard.
Well, show up, because if you don't, it's important for women more so because of that doubt. But with the representation is also show up, be counted, and be seen, so that people can sort of be mindful of.
Now, I just want to bring it back to the book again. To the people watching this, and about your book, what can people expect when they read your book? What's the biggest takeaway you hope people get when they read your book?
Inspiration.
To
inspiration to be part of the digital economy in a way that works best for you.
Okay.
As I said, there are different stories. And it's about what are you passionate about? You know, it could be, as I come back to the example about an artist, because I wanted to be a graphic designer at one point in my life. But, you know, if art is your passion, or if you're really passionate about climate change, ask yourself, what are you passionate about? And then go and find a solution to a problem that you are passionate about solving, and then finding how technology can help you do that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Nimisha, for coming on the podcast. And I enjoyed the book. Guys, the book is called The Female Digital Revolution. It's a fantastic book. And basically, to me, I look at it as basically a call to action to governments, companies, investors, and all that to do better, to participate in this movement, to get more women in the digital revolution. I guess because, you know what, at the end of the day, all the inventions help and support and benefit all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so not just for women. Anyway. But thank you, Nimisha, for this, giving us amazing insight. Congrats on the book. Guys, the book is called, again, The Female Digital Revolution. Links will be in the description. And again, thank you to Penguin Southeast Asia for putting this interview together. We'll see you all soon. We have many more amazing authors coming from Penguin, as well as other politicians local, discussing all sorts of topics on this podcast. So stay tuned. As always, please like, share, subscribe. Link will be in the description. So get your copy now. And we'll see you all soon. Thank you, Nimisha. All the best to you. And
thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And when's the second book coming out? Do we have a second, third book that we can maybe review together soon?
We need a revolution for that.
Okay, there we go. So guys, there you heard it. So take care, guys. We'll see you all soon. Bye.